This wasn't just a rant. This was a spiral, a descent into something far more alarming than mere political fury. Now, for the first time, the whispers aren't about impeachment. They're about the 25th Amendment. Section 4, the constitutional mechanism designed for an emergency transfer of presidential power if senior officials believe the president cannot reliably carry out the duties of the office. Washington, D.C., January 29, 2026. The Capitol is waking up to a crisis that did not begin in a courtroom or on a debate stage. It began in the middle of the night on a smartphone screen as President Donald Trump unleashed a rapid barrage of posts that triggered alarm not only among political opponents, but also among voices inside his own orbit. Trump has always been combative online, but what happened overnight has escalated into something different. Between 11 p.m. and 4:30 a.m., the president issued a wave of statements attacking foreign leaders, targeting media figures, and reviving controversial claims that left even longtime supporters struggling to respond. By sunrise, phones across Capitol Hill were ringing nonstop, and the phrase spreading through political circles was not MAGA. It was the 25th Amendment. What is unfolding now is not about one isolated night. It is about a pattern that has been accelerating for months. In late 2025, the president drew attention for marathon stretches of overnight posting that major outlets described as unprecedented in volume and intensity. Analysts noted the pace, the fury, and the sense of a presidency that never seemed to sleep. But overnight, the focus shifted from aggression to deeper concerns about judgment, impulse, and stability at the highest level of government. Several posts were deleted within minutes. Others appeared without clear strategic purpose. The rapid reversals only fueled questions about what is happening inside the West Wing during these late-night hours. The warning signs have been building publicly. In recent months, the president has delivered speeches that sometimes drifted from prepared remarks into darker and more chaotic themes. At one address to military leaders, he spoke at length about threats from within the country, rhetoric that critics said raised fears about domestic escalation. At the United Nations, Trump made sweeping claims about global victories and achievements that diplomats reportedly met with stunned silence rather than applause. For many observers, the issue was no longer simply politics. It was unpredictability and the growing sense of a presidency operating under extreme pressure. Sources point to a convergence of major stress points surrounding the administration. The economy has faced turbulence. Manufacturing sectors have struggled under tariff fallout. Leaks have suggested internal divisions within the cabinet. Media coverage has increasingly focused on moments of controversy and confusion during recent rallies. According to reports, late last night, the president became enraged after a wave of late-night television segments mocked a recent onstage freeze. Inside the White House, aides described a tense atmosphere. By midnight, the president was reportedly demanding immediate responses, new statements, new targets, and then the posting began. Unlike previous political attacks, these statements lacked a clear opponent. He lashed out across multiple fronts, from foreign governments to domestic critics, from media personalities to former allies. At one point, he reposted an attack on Elon Musk, then deleted it, then praised him again minutes later. The speed and volatility of the messaging left Washington asking a question that has rarely been spoken aloud. Could this become a 25th Amendment moment? The 25th Amendment was ratified in 1967 after the Kennedy assassination era, designed to clarify presidential succession. Most Americans know it for situations where a president undergoes surgery and temporarily transfers power. But Section 4 is different. It is the most extreme provision. It was written for a situation where a president is alive, but senior officials believe he cannot reliably discharge the responsibilities of office. The language is clear. The vice president, along with a majority of the cabinet, must send a written declaration to the Speaker of the House and the President pro tempore of the Senate, stating that the president is unable to perform the duties of the presidency. The vice president is the linchpin. Without him, nothing happens. And that is where the political drama becomes almost unimaginable. Vice President J.D. Vance is only 41 years old and widely seen as a future leader of the Republican movement. If he were to invoke Section 4, it would be the most explosive act of political betrayal in modern American history. If he succeeds, he becomes acting president. If he fails, Trump returns with vengeance and Vance's career is over. Section 4 has never been used. It is the break glass in case of emergency option, and even if invoked, it is not immediately permanent. If the declaration is sent, the president is stripped of power instantly, and the vice president assumes authority. But the president can respond with his own declaration stating he is able to serve. Then power returns unless the vice president and cabinet send another declaration within 4 days. At that point, Congress must vote, and the threshold is staggering. 2/3 of both chambers must agree to keep the president out of power. That bar is higher than impeachment. This is why the 25th Amendment is so rarely discussed seriously. It is not just a constitutional mechanism, it is a political earthquake. Reports from major outlets over the last year have hinted at quiet conversations behind closed doors. But last night's escalation has reportedly turned quiet conversations into urgent conference calls. Inside the cabinet, officials are said to be divided into factions. There are loyalists who will never break with Trump. There are institutional figures who fear instability, especially in matters of national security. And there are opportunists watching which way the political winds blow, waiting to protect their own futures. The pressure is mounting outside the White House as well. Some lawmakers have openly questioned whether the country is entering dangerous territory. Even conservative media voices that typically defend Trump have grown quieter, their silence fueling speculation that something serious is unfolding. And hovering over all of this is the global reality. America's adversaries are watching closely. Intelligence officials have long warned that foreign governments monitor instability and look for openings. The nightmare scenario is not a social media post. It is a sudden escalation, a miscalculation, a decision made in a moment of chaos. This is why Section 4 exists. It is the constitutional safety valve, but it is a valve that requires extraordinary courage to turn. If Vance acts, the Republican Party fractures, the MAGA base erupts, civil unrest becomes possible. But if no one acts and instability worsens, critics warn the country risks an even greater crisis. The United States has faced moments of presidential fragility before. Woodrow Wilson suffered a stroke that effectively sidelined him. Franklin Roosevelt governed while gravely ill. Ronald Reagan's later years sparked questions that only became clear in hindsight. But America has never experienced a presidency where volatility plays out instantly, broadcast post by post to the world in real time. That is what makes this moment so uniquely destabilizing. Every overnight statement is immediate. Every deletion is noticed. Every reversal becomes a headline. The presidency is no longer filtered through staff, through delay, through official press briefings. It is delivered raw, directly, in the darkest hours of the night, and the entire world watches it unfold. The political consequences are immense. If Section 4 were ever invoked, it would not simply remove power temporarily, it would fracture the modern Republican Party. The MAGA movement would see it as betrayal. Trump loyalists would frame it as a coup. The vice president would become acting president under the most explosive circumstances imaginable. Protests would erupt, legal battles would follow. The country would enter an era of unrest unlike anything in recent decades. And yet the counter-argument is just as powerful. If no one acts and instability worsens, critics warn the risks multiply, markets respond to uncertainty, allies lose confidence, adversaries test limits. The chain of command becomes strained by unpredictability. The executive branch begins to wobble under its own weight. This is the trap Washington is staring into. A constitutional mechanism exists, but using it could tear the nation apart. Not using it could allow the crisis to deepen. As the sun rises over Washington, the posting spree has stopped for now. The president is likely asleep, but the country is wide awake. Inside the West Wing, aides are watching carefully. On Capitol Hill, lawmakers are bracing for the next wave. Behind closed doors, conversations once unthinkable are now part of the political reality. The 25th Amendment is no longer an obscure constitutional footnote. It is now a live question at the center of American power. A draft letter could already exist somewhere inside the executive offices. The only question left is simple. Who, if anyone, has the pen? This story is developing by the hour. If the cabinet moves, the world will know quickly. If they do not, the country braces for the next night, the next storm, and the next test of the American presidency. Donald Trump's latest night may be over, but Washington fears this crisis may only be beginning.